The New Orleans Saints and Carolina Panthers look to get more explosive in the draft by taking wide receivers. We'll talk about that today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, y'all? Welcome to the Barbershop. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL show called The Barbershop, and Chris Carter is my Thursday shotgun rider, as we call it, from Locked On Steelers. Let me tell you what we're going to discuss today. We're going to end the show talking about the Philadelphia Eagles with a potential surprise pick right smack in the middle of the show. What happens with Vega is a key to the NFL draft. Shout out to Las Vegas. And we'll start at the very top, talk about Saints and Panthers looking to add explosive wide receivers. Something that went kind of under the radar last year, and I think it needs to be talked about more, Chris Carter, is the fact that New Orleans looks like they found their franchise quarterback in the second round. And that is so important. And granted, we got to slow down a little bit because I know I can see you already. I know you ain't already calling that dude a franchise quarterback. But I kind of am thinking that even if he isn't, they're preparing as if Tyler Shuck is. They're building their team as if they think they got their guy. So that always works out to me. I think the thing that they need to do now is get that guy some weapons, and they're sitting at number 8. And they probably hope that Carnell Tate falls to him, Chris.
I mean, certainly, if you get a talented wide receiver, that would, build you more in the direction that you're going. And you're right to sense out my sense of being like, oh, hold on, wait a second there. I ain't going all that. Because I'm not ready to say Tyler Shuck is a franchise quarterback just yet. I will say he impressed me that that I didn't think that he would, do what he did last year. I thought that he would, struggle mightily. I thought he was solid, but again, he was just solid. He had 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions in 9 starts. To me, that's he's still like okay. I think the thing is that for the Saints, they just needed to see someone with that shows some signs of life, right? And so, and the Saints were just a really bad team. So like him bringing some stability, that was encouraging if you're the Saints. So. So I'm not sitting in here saying I'm ready to crown him as the franchise QB, but I do think you could say like, hey, you know what? With a really bad situation, he didn't back down. He didn't make things worse. So we're gonna say here, like he honestly, like if you look at his passer rating, he was right around league average, and that for a second round rookie coming into a bad situation, that is something you can work with. And so if you're saying that, okay, cool. Well, let's give him more to work with. And if I'm the Saints and I look at this wide receiver class, I am rubbing my hands together like, who can I get? Because I'm in the back of the top 10, and I think that's the sweet spot of where if you want to tap into the top of this receiver class, whether you think the best receiver is Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, or Jordan Tyson, that's a great spot. You're most likely going to have the first pick because I foresee the top 7 picks being, Mendoza, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, David Bailey, Ruben Bain, Jeremiah Love. I think so many of those guys are going to go before the Saints that they're going to be able to sit there and say, okay, we're going to get our pick of wide receivers. Let's get the best wide receiver, put him on our roster, and then Tyler Shuck will have a lot more to work with than he did last year.
It's funny that you say rub your hands together because in hip-hop culture, that's known as the Birdman hand rub. And where's Birdman from? He's from New Orleans. Guess who else is from New Orleans? Ross Jackson. And he's here from Locked On Saints to tell you all about it.
According to our good friend Nick Underhill over at NewOrleans.football, Carnell Tate is visiting the New Orleans Saints this week. The Ohio State wide receiver is a fantastic fit for the New Orleans Saints offense, scheme, and just an all-around good idea to draft a player like that can help you continue to build around your quarterback. Make no mistake about it. Tyler Shuck is a great young quarterback. Tyler Shuck is hopefully for this franchise, the future of this franchise. Tyler Shuck has every bit of it. The Saints should be looking to continue to add premier talent around him, and Carnell Tate would be an excellent way to go about exactly that.
All right, Ross Jackson says he's great. He's there with him each and every day, and he's seen greatness before in Drew Brees, so he kind of knows what it looks like in its infancy. We'll wait on all of that, but one thing we won't wait on is this. When a team thinks that they have a quarterback, and what happened is it matched up perfectly. First-year quarterback, first-year coach. We always talk about coach-quarterback combination and how important that is for them to grow together. When they think they have the right one, they make the right and proper decisions around him. When you don't have a quarterback and you're unsure, you're always doing things trying to prop him up and insulate him to the point where he's not the one making the decision whether you win or lose. He just has to manage the game. So at least now they're going to be on the right path to building this thing out. Another team in that same division that is kind of doing the same thing, because Bryce Young showed a pulse last year. Dave Canales and crew, they made the playoffs and made a nice little run towards the end of the year. Now, they ain't by no stretch of the imagination one of the most talented teams in the league, but they're built in a certain way that it'll get a little bit more explosiveness on offense to go with Ted McMillan. They could be really, really good. And they're nosing around some wide receivers too, potentially one that I think will show off in the NFL way more than he did in college. Check this out.
But when you look at Omar Cooper Jr., you talk about wherever he goes, he's going to be a stud. What stands out to you when you turn on the tape and watch him go out there and do his thing?
I mean, on film and when you just see him walking around, it's his height and his size and his physicality. Those are the things that you instantly notice and you're like, okay, this dude is built like an NFL receiver. But then he gets out there, and is he going to be somebody who catches 15 balls a game? Probably not. He wasn't that in college. I guess he could if an NFL team wants to do that. But he is somebody where, yes, you can throw it up, let him go win a 50-50 ball in the back corner of the end zone. He did so on the back goal line against Penn State.
I got a comp. The comp is Rashee Rice. And why that works for me is because he doesn't have to be a volume receiver to be effective. And he also is tough. He runs after the catch. You put that with the catch radius of Teteroy McMillan and the confidence that he was able to play with as a rookie. And I'm telling you, if they get more explosive to go along with Derek Brown and the way that they play defense, this could be a good year for the Carolina Panthers to start making an advance towards the top of that division.
Yeah, I think that this could be an interesting race between these two teams, right? Like, the Saints have the much higher pick, but the Panthers, I mean, they showed that they're ready to take a step forward. I like the idea of the Panthers getting Bryce Young, another super talented weapon, because I like Bryce Young. I think that he is a guy who, he's not there yet. Like, he still has to do a lot in my eyes to arrive. For example, his passer rating was, still was well below league average. He wasn't that guy just yet, but he was also a guy that I think that was, in a rough situation and made it even better than Tyler Shuck did with his situation. And granted, Bryce Young, he's had some time to develop. I think he's been he's a rough spot. But if you give Bryce Young some supreme talent, I saw that guy in college just come through in the clutch so many times. And if you put him with multiple killer wide receivers, like the guys Ted McMillan, you give him a partner that is just an assassin wide receiver, at their spot. Like Omar Cooper, to me, I do think Omar Cooper could be one of those star wide receivers. I mean, he's someone that if I'm the Steelers, I am salivating over, and that's one thing that I think that the Steelers should be worried about is a team like the Panthers picking up Omar Cooper, because the Panthers picked 2 spots before the Steelers. And so if I'm the Steelers, I'm saying, hey, yeah, Omar Cooper, no, he's not all that. But if he falls to 21, he will be all that for the Steelers. I'm telling you right now. So, yeah. So, I mean, if I'm the Panthers, yeah, I'm jumping all over this opportunity, getting me another playmaker wide receiver, and then seeing how far that offense can take me.
Yep. I remember a few years ago, people used to pick at the AFC South. I even called them the Mountain West of the NFL, but now they're not. Now you got Jacksonville, Tennessee probably is on his way up. Of course, you got hard-hitting Houston out there. And then the Colts, if they ever figure out how to get out of mediocrity, they're not the laughingstock of the league anymore with the way these top teams are playing in that division. We'll look back maybe at this offseason as one of those years, a couple of years from now, where we say this is where the NFC South took a turn also with the way that these teams are being built by their new coaches. All right, what we have coming up here in segment number 2 is my man Vega. What happens with Vega? Well, We usually say it stays in Vegas, but no, this is going to stay in our mind because what's going to happen is it's going to have a big effect on the rest of the NFL draft, and we'll tell you why in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like talking about to you guys today. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if you start your first bet, and if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, the extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Now, I want you to look up. Make sure you check those injury reports for who's in and who's out because that could mess you up. But then you have an advantage also of making your wagers pre-game because what that will do is allow you to take advantage of some really, really good odds. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. All right, man, we're rolling along here on Locked On NFL, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Tony Wiggins here with Chris Carter. Make sure you check out the Everydayers Club of Locked On NFL and Locked On Steelers and Locked On Jaguars. You can subscribe to more than one for $5, a minimum of $5. You get access to our merchandise where you get great Locked On branded merchandise that you can only find there, and you get access to shows that go out to our audio platform partners that are ad-free. Make sure you tap in to the Everydayers Club of your favorite podcast or podcasts. All right. There's a few polarizing players in this draft. We're going to talk about both of them here. One of them, it's hard to place him. The other one, it's really easy to place. The one that's hard to place is Vega Ioane. And it's not hard to place him because you don't know if he's that good. No, it's hard to place him because you wonder how people value him because he is so good. I've heard somebody say possibly top 10 because after him and maybe Keelan Rutledge, the guard class kind of slides down a little bit. And teams have gone back to the run. And now you know that it's very, very important for you to be able to control the line of scrimmage. One team that's done that very well up until last year with the Detroit Lions. And now they've lost 2 or 3 people with some bad circumstances with Taylor Decker and also the re-retirement of Frank Ragnow and the bad taste that is in a lot of people's mouths up there by the fact that they tried to get his signing bonus back. All of those things. But they can get back to that physicality if they draft Vega Ioane. Chris and I believe he'll probably be gone, but I know my man Matt Derry up with Locked On Lions. He's hoping he's not. Check this out.
So what was interesting about the Schrader mock was he has the Lions at 17 taking Vega Ioane, the big guard from Penn State. And if you've watched Ioane before, you've seen that this guy is an absolute monster. And Schrager wrote in his piece, quote, "I'm not sure there's a more Dan Campbell player in this draft than Ioane. He's 6'4" and 320 pounds, and he plays with a mean streak. Ioane didn't give up a single sack, was an All-American last season at Penn State. Nice fit on the interior of the Detroit offensive line." Now, again, if you watch Ioane play, and he can play right guard, he can play left guard, but he is a guard. He is not a tackle.
All right, so because of what Matt Derry just said right there at the end, he's a guard and not tackle. You'll get people saying that's too high. That's too high. Yeah, it's too high until he turns out to be an all-pro in year 2, and now you got to think about him being on that line for the next 10 or 15 years. I do not think it's too high as long as the player is as good as advertised.
He is not too. It is not too high. I look at Ioane on my big board right now. Ioane is the 13th ranked player. I think he is that good. I think that and in my opinion, you're looking at at how things go. I would not be shocked if he's a top 10 pick because I think people want dominant guards. They want dominant playmakers. I know people it's just lust over tackles, but listen, an elite guard does so much for you. It helps your tackle so much. So Ioane, to me, he is one of the premier talents in this draft class. I personally think the floor for him to be picked in this draft is the 14th overall pick at the Ravens, because I'm telling you, after how badly, and it's coming out more and more that people that Lamar Jackson and a lot of the people, the Ravens felt like Faalele, their starting guard last year, was a big reason why they didn't win the division and why they missed the playoffs. If they could replace him with a superstar like Ioane, I think that the Ravens would be boosted so much this year, and they would be so much more dangerous. And so I don't think there's any way he gets past 14. So if the Lions want him, he ain't gonna be at 17. You better come up to get him, at 13 with the Rams, 12 with the Cowboys, or 11 with the Dolphins. And I think he would be worth that, especially with who the Lions are right now and what they need if they want to still be active in this window that they built for themselves, or if they want to let that slip away, because it's close to slipping away as it is. But I love Ioane. Vega is nasty, man. He is complete. He's physical, and he also, I keep hearing so many good character stories and good, like this guy is, a leader. This guy does the right things off the field. That's who I want in my organization. Let me tell you this much: if he somehow falls down into the Lions' range of 17, I think the Steelers would be considering, we might trade up and get that guy at like 15 or 16, because I don't think the Steelers want to spend too much in a trade up unless they think it's for an extremely elite player. But Ioane, I think, could be an elite guard, and the Steelers are looking really good at guard. He brought up Keelan Rutledge. He's one of their pre-draft visitors. I think it's Ioane, Pregnon, DeSantis, Rutledge, and like those are the four. Once you get past those four, that's where the jump happens for me at the guard position, or not the jump, but the drop off. And I think there's some guys you get at Jennings Dunker's a tackle who I think can flex to guard if you're the Steelers. But then when you get to like the Bo Stevens territory, that's when you're like, okay, this guy's more developmental, might take some time to come along. And some guys can work. Steelers, Mason McCormick, their right guard right now, is a 4th round pick out of North Dakota State. He's turned into a mauler, and they love him as a starter. But I think if you want a plug him in right now guard, Ioane is the perfect candidate for that. The other guys behind him, I think, would be good, but he could be, I'm talking like this guy's probably going to have 3 or 4 all-pro seasons by the time his career's over, and that's a superstar right there.
Yeah, and the thing with the draft, you get to match up players at I guess they call non-critical positions. All of them are critical if you don't have players at those spots, but the ones that don't have the positional value. Guard is one and safety is another. But the difference is when you line them up with teams that use their superpowers and run through their positions, the way Detroit runs through their offensive line and plays through the physicality of the offensive line. You can say that same thing about Minnesota and safety. I'll give you 2 names from fantasy football. People always get mad at fantasy football, but there's sometimes that'll help you out and showing you who is showcased. Cam Bynum made his name. He plays for the Colts, but he made his name playing for Minnesota. Right? It's just everybody knows about Cam Bynum. You always hear about Minnesota safeties. You don't believe me? What about Harrison Smith, who has a post June 1st designation after being released? He's in his mid-30s or close to being in his mid-30s. You know why? Because they run systems that allow their safeties to really, really flourish, and they actually need it. That's why I keep having this one player in every mock draft, Thieneman. The kid from Oregon. I keep getting to 18 and putting him with Minnesota because of that reason. And listen to my man, Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings. Talk about it.
Oregon safety Dylan Thieneman is the overwhelming favorite to be the Vikings' first-round pick. So is this a good idea? But I think the first thing you have to know is that Thieneman's testing is completely insane. 4.35 40. Fantastic stuff, especially for a safety. 41-inch vert, over a 10-foot broad jump. That is absolutely bananas athleticism. However, you do have to weight adjust it, and he is just barely over 200 pounds, which is extremely light for an NFL safety. He is a small little bean. And that information, like, I want you to think of a safety with that package and ask yourself, how would that guy play? And you're probably going to generate in your imagination a bunch of pretty accurate ideas about Dylan Thieneman, right?
Perfect pick to me, Chris Carter, but we know the draft will always do what you don't expect them to do.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to happen there. But Thieneman, I really like Thieneman. I think he's a really good player. I think that, yeah, sure, he's a little light, but At the same time, he is so athletic. He flies all over the field. He has really good ball skills, really good instincts and how to transition through coverage. And that's something that I truly do value. Is when I see a guy who can disguise coverage and understand how to flow between, hey, we're setting up a shell of a cover 2, but we're going to a cover 3, and I know exactly what space this quarterback we want him to try to throw to, so I can create a problem here. That's something that I really value. I think Thieneman gets that. So I'd find a way there. I know that he kind of played a little bit in the box and the slot. I would love to see him at free safety with his speed and his ball skills. I would put him at a deep safety role where now it don't matter that he's that light, because you know what? He's going back there and he's taking away the deep ball. He's helping in coverage that way. I would take him in a heartbeat, put him in there, and he's flying over the field for me. He's someone that I'm looking at for the Steelers right now, because I think they could use that speedy deep safety on their roster right now.
Also, you have to take this into consideration. I've heard this, maybe not all the way across the board, but I've heard this a lot, that guys, after they declare for the draft, spend so much time preparing to run a 40-yard dash that they sometimes drop 5 or 6 pounds by doing so much cardio just to make that drill right. And then they end up gaining the weight back. So we'll see if that's the case for him. The Eagles with a surprise pick in the NFL draft. Howie Roseman has done it before at quarterback. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show sponsored and brought to you by TurboTax. It's time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is, well, a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade into it. TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It is the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. All right, Chris Carter, we are coming down the stretch, and we are going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not a stretch when you think that Howie Roseman will do something that you don't expect in the draft. They had a former number 2 overall pick in Carson Wentz, and in the second round, they took Jalen Hurts. That worked out for him because Hurts took him to 2 Super Bowls, winning one of them, and probably should have won one MVP in the one that they lost. But this is Philadelphia we're talking about here. Those fans don't care. Remember, they fired Doug Peterson 2 years after he won their first Super Bowl championship ever. It's always a strive for excellence in Philadelphia. That's why I don't put it past Howie Roseman to maybe go and get a quarterback. But a lot of it will depend on, too, whether they do that or not. Their season and the future of this franchise will depend on how Jalen Hurts is able to manage who he is as a player and what is expected of him. Here's my man, Lou DiBiase from Locked On Eagles to tell you all about that.
I still think, although he needs to evolve, Jalen cannot move away from being a mobile quarterback like he did in 2025. I don't think, and although there's been some regression, Jalen in the Super Bowl 13 months ago destroyed the Chiefs with his legs. And I think as well, when you look at 2025, there were still moments where you saw Jalen could still be a very effective rushing quarterback, even if he's not the same guy as, 2020 to 2023. He's still a very effective rushing quarterback when he can get north-south. So with that being said, I do feel like Jalen Hurts needs to be willing to run more in 2026 and the short-term future if the Eagles still want to be an elite offense, if they still want to compete for championships.
Look, man, the Philadelphia Eagles is not the organization for you to look at and say, ain't no way they're going to do that, because they just might do that.
Look, the Eagles, Howie Roseman's proven they are aggressive. They are going to go after who they think. I don't think Ty Simpson would be the move. I personally think you got to I'm not a big Ty Simpson guy. I think if you jettison Jalen Hurts for Ty Simpson, you better believe in that guy. He better come in and light it up, because and here's the thing. I went went to college at Cheney University, the first HBCU, out in the Philly area. So I know Eagles fans. I have several close friends who are them. If
They don't play.
Ty Simpson comes in and stinks it up after you jettison Jalen Hurts, and this city loves Jalen. That city loves Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
If you jettison Jalen Hurts and bring in Ty Simpson, he stinks. Ugh, it's gonna be ugly. And here's the thing: I know that there's questions about Jalen Hurts is holding them back, this, that, and the third, whatever. That man won you a Super Bowl, got you to 2, and played really strong in them. And I have a hard time seeing the benefit of moving on from him for a guy like Ty Simpson. Now, if this was next year and
that's what I mean. Now, just bringing him in this year as the future, not necessarily getting rid of Hurts now.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying if it's next year's quarterbacks, like I don't even think Ty Simpson is the future. I think Ty Simpson is a backup. I think he's Mason Rudolph.
Ooh.
I think he is. He's going to come in. He can learn your system. He's starting some pinches. I don't think Ty Simpson. I mean, to me, he has to show a lot more before I consider that. That's why, like in every mock draft, whenever I do like PFF simulator, they said you should have picked Ty Simpson. No, I should not have, because he is not that guy in my opinion.
I got you, bro. Check this out though. I think Philly has a little bit of regret. This is a bad beat. They win the Super Bowl. And they know the best coach on their staff is Kellen Moore, and he's now in New Orleans. So the thing is, you can't fire your coach after he wins. I mean, they did it before, but they didn't fire him right after he won the Super Bowl. They let him come out and stink it up for a year and a half, and then they decided to move on from Doug Peterson. But now it's like they're watching Kellen Moore down there, and their offense is struggling, and they say, see, that's what we wish we could have kept. And the thing is it always goes like that. Now, will the Chicago Bears move beyond what they went last year? They surprised a lot of people. Didn't surprise me that they would be better. I thought they would be better under Ben Johnson. But the Bears, the Jaguars, the Patriots, if the Patriots and the Seahawks, 2 teams that didn't even make the playoffs the year prior, had not gone to the Super Bowl, we'd be talking about the Jaguars, and we'd be talking more about Ben Johnson. But it's like, because those teams, a whole bunch of teams had success last year that didn't have success the year before. And most of the fan bases want people to overreact. And this is what Lauren Cox is going to tell you right now from Locked On Bears, that the Bears should not go after Dexter Lawrence. And trust me, as a Jaguars, somebody that covers the Jaguars, I went through this all week. Every time a big name comes open, we need to go get him. Listen to Lauren Cox say why the Bears shouldn't.
Chicago Bears fans are clamoring for the team to trade for Dexter Lawrence after the nose tackle requested a trade from the New York Giants. But this type of deal doesn't make a ton of sense for the Bears, in the same way that they didn't pull the trigger on a Max Crosby trade or any of the other top defensive linemen available this offseason. Someone like Dexter Lawrence is going to cost a significant amount of salary cap space from the Chicago Bears, in addition to the draft picks they have to give up in order to get him. The Bears currently don't have any extra salary cap space. They have to clear cap space right now just to be able to sign their own draft picks this year.
So I get that. This comes down to, does Dexter Lawrence make them better? You dang on right he does. But the problem with that is, what are you losing? What do you have to tear down in order to bring him in? And there will obviously be holes popping up everywhere else too.
Yeah, I think I agree with Lauren. The Bears got something good right now. Keep building, man. You got some really good draft capital. Build. You'll keep stacking your picks. You've been making good picks. Your team's young. Keep that youth movement going, man. I would get it if I was rushed by a window with them. Like if Caleb Williams was a bit older and the core around Caleb Williams was a lot older, and we're about to lose a whole bunch of guys, then I would be like, all right, maybe we should try to push it and try to get that. But nah, man, I'm building with my young picks. I'm picking well. If I'm polls, I'm sitting chilling with my picks, and I'm working that. If anything, I'm trading around in the draft to get higher picks in certain spots. So yeah, I'm right with you, man. I'm not with Lauren. Do not get in that trade conversation unless that trade market drives itself down, like where sometimes a player makes it so adamant, I want out of here, and every team in the NFL is just like, tough situation for you, Giants. Maybe you're gonna have to come off that you wanted a second, maybe it's more like a fourth, and like that's when I would get into the conversation. But until it gets to that, yeah, Bears, stay away from that. Keep doing what you're doing. I think that you're building something special.
Yeah, Myles Garrett, I do it. just the way the Dallas Cowboys back in the early 90s did it when they went and got Charles Haley because they had a young team. With the Bears, the nose tackle doesn't move the needle for me for you to break up what you're trying to do. Just keep building with young people and see how it works out. It's going to work out for you good if you tune in to Locked On NFL, Locked On Steelers, Locked On Jaguars each and every day. And it's even better if you're a part of the Everydayers Club. Look down in the description of all of those podcasts, and there you go. You can click on it. Whether you watch or listen, you can get ad-free shows to those audio platforms, and then great merchandise that you can only find at Locked On with our brand on it. Make sure you tap into that. And you'll also get some discourse with various podcasts from around our network, one-on-one conversations, sometimes text messages and stuff that you don't normally get on your regular show. But you will get your regular show each and every day because it's your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen, and we don't ever take you for granted. We appreciate you joining us here on the Locked On Podcast Network in the Barbershop. We'll see you next time.